The Ink-Keepers Apprentice, written and illustrated by Alan Say.
Kiyoi is 13 years old and living in Tokyo after World War II. His dream is to be a cartoonist. One day, he visits the studio of Noro Shinpei, a famous cartoonist, and asks to become his apprentice. Although Master Noro already has an apprentice, Tokita, he makes Kiyoi draw a horse as a test. Impressed by Kiyoi's dream, Master Noro agrees to become his sensei, or teacher. Kiyoi arrives at the studio the next day to begin his apprenticeship.
The next day, I arrived at the studio at 10 in the morning. Sensei and Tokita were already at work, sitting in the same places, wearing the same clothes. Sensei's small eyes were bloodshot, and his face bristled with a heavy beard. "You've come just in time to give us a hand. Tokita and I have been going non-stop since you left. Have you had breakfast?" "Yes, sir." "Pour yourself a cup of tea. A magazine reporter is coming over at 2 to pick up this installment. We'll relax after that." "Here, I'll have another cup," he said, and handed me his mug. Already I was beginning to feel useful, pouring tea for the master. "Ready to work, Kiyoi?" Tokita spoke to me for the first time. "Yes, what can I do?" "Don't worry, you'll have plenty to do. You don't know what you got yourself into," Tokita said. He spoke with a slight Osaka accent, which is softer and more melodious than the sharp staccato speech of the Tokyo natives. It was exciting and a little eerie to watch one of the best-known comic serials come to life in front of me. Tokita penciled in the frames on thick Bristol boards with a ruler, and Sensei sketched in the rough figures with a soft leaded pencil. He drew with tremendous speed and energy. Even when his pencil wasn't touching the paper, his hand moved round and round as if drawing hundreds of small circles. I kept looking at his hand and noticed a pea-sized callus on the middle finger, and I wondered how many hundreds of hours I had to draw to work up a callus like Sensei's. I looked at Tokita's drawing hand and saw a budding pea. Then I saw that half of the little finger on Tokita's left hand had been lopped off. Sensei didn't draw in any orderly way, but skipped from one frame to the next, as if he was working on his favorite scenes first. A steady stream of ideas seemed to rush through his head and flow out from the tip of his pencil. How did he know what size to make the balloons before putting in the words? I wondered, but was afraid to ask. Sometimes the Bristol boards became so heavily penciled it was hard to tell what was going on. Sensei would scribble a few words here and there inside the balloons and chuckle to himself. Then he would put a new nib in a pen holder and start to ink over the drawings. He used the pen as quickly and freely as he did a pencil, except with a pen he never went over the same line twice. He worked so fast I was afraid he might ruin a drawing, but he never did. The nib slid over the smooth paper effortlessly, and the gleaming streak of black ink flowed with ease and power. Suddenly, a cartoon figure would emerge, almost leaping out of the page. It took my breath away. "Do you know what a baseball player's uniform looks like?" asked Sensei. Tokita and I looked at each other and nodded. "Draw one for me." It's another test, I thought. Tokita seemed as puzzled as I was, but we each drew a baseball uniform. Sensei glanced at our drawings. "So you thought you knew what it looks like," he said. "You hardly know anything about it. You don't know where the seams come together. You're not sure about the length of the sleeves, and you don't know how many loops there are to hold up the pants. Soon, I'm going to have you draw the backgrounds, and I want you to know what it is that you're drawing. For instance, when I ask you to draw a Shinto temple, I don't mean just any old temple, but a Shinto temple. Most of the time, no one will know the difference, but I want you to know it. If you're not sure, look it up. Don't rely on your memory." Tokita and I said nothing. When Sensei asked us to draw the uniform, I thought he was being silly. Baseball was the most popular sport in Japan, and of course everybody knew what the uniform looked like. Or so I thought. Now I understood why so many books and magazines cluttered the studio. They were research materials. I wondered if I could draw anything from memory. The only consolation was that Tokita's drawing wasn't much better than mine. "Kiyoi, watch Tokita and give him a hand," said Sensei. Tokita moved over so I could sit next to him and watch what he was doing. With a brush, he inked in the night skies, patterns on kimonos, hairdos, putting small touches here and there, giving life to the line drawings. When each frame was completed and the pencil lines erased, the finished drawings stood out against the sleek, creamy paper. They were beautiful even before they were tinted with watercolor. "Here, do this one," said Tokita casually, and gave me a board and a brush. "Fill in the large spots, like this man's coat. Always start from the top and work from left to right so you won't smudge the ink. And put a piece of paper under your hand so you won't grease up the board." This was more frightening than drawing the horse yesterday. The master was actually going to let me work on his drawings. He and Tokita acted as though I'd been working with them for a long time. I felt like I was going into a duel with a real sword, without having gone through any training with a bamboo stick. Timidly, with a shaky hand, I started at a safe place, in the middle of a blank area, and worked outward. As I went near the edges, I unconsciously grasped the brush harder with each stroke, but the brush had a way of wandering off by itself, right over the outlines. I was making a mess. "Don't worry about it, keep going," Tokita encouraged me. "But I've ruined it," I said, nearly in tears. "That's nothing," said Sensei. "You should have seen Tokita when he started. He has the shakiest hand I've ever seen. He'll show you what to do." Tokita dipped a new brush into a jar of thick white paint and went over the mess I'd made. "All you have to do is cover it up with white, and the camera won't pick it up," he told me. "What do you mean?" "They photographed these drawings to make the printing plates." What a relief. The drawing didn't have to be discarded. Now that I knew a dab of white paint would hide all my mistakes, I went to work with a renewed spirit. I ran the brush along the straight lines of the frame borders and found that I had more control when I painted with swift strokes. "Very good, Kiyoi," said Sensei. "You used something sharp in the brush just now, like the edge of a knife. The brush is many things. Remember that edge." He was right. There was something sharp in the brush, and I could cut a straight or curved line with a quick turn of my wrist. And the amount of ink on the brush had a lot to do with what you could do with it. I felt as if I was learning calligraphy all over again. After I was through inking the piece, Tokita showed me how to accent rounded objects, wheels, balls, hairdos, and such, to give them a sense of volume. It was thrilling to see a flat line drawing suddenly become three-dimensional by putting in the highlights. At first, I couldn't handle the brush well enough to use the white of the paper for the highlights, so I had to put them in with white paint. But after a while, I got carried away and began to put in 2 or 3 highlights on a single object. The sun, Kiyoi," said Sensei. "One sun, one shadow, one highlight." "Yes, sir." At noon, Sensei sent me to a restaurant to order our lunch. "Noro Shinpei's place?" asked the woman who looked like the owner's wife. "Yes, we'd like 3 bowls of noodles with shrimp, please." "We haven't seen you before, have we?" "No, I'm new." "What happened to Tokita-san?" "He's working with Sensei. I'm the new pupil." "What? Another one?" The woman looked me up and down. "But you seem so young. You must be awfully good to be his student." Even the owner came out of the kitchen to inspect me. It was wonderful to have a famous master.